Welcome to Flunking the Written, a fully spoiled Buffy the Vampire Slayer podcast in which two Uber fans break down every episode of the show. Join Kimberly and Megan every other Tuesday as they overanalyze each scene and discuss the Buffyverse at large. Now let's meet up with the Scoobies and get into this episode of Flunking the Written.
What can I say? I flunked the written.
All right, Kim, we are ready to get into our discussion of Gingerbread, which was written by Jane Espenson and Thania St. John and was directed by James Whitmore Jr. And the DVD blurb is, after Buffy's mother discovers two dead children marked with a symbol linked to the occult, she begins a campaign to rid Sunnydale of witches.
It's accurate.
Yeah, you gotta get rid of those witches.
Yeah, I mean, it's very accurate. It's not quite the whole story, but, you know, it doesn't say that it tries to kill Buffy.
Doesn't give away that little tidbit. All right, so let's just hop into it, why don't we? Let's just start here at Buffy patrolling, and everything's, pretty normal. It's dark, and she hears a rustling, and she's prepared to be ambushed by a vampire, and instead it's her mom, which might be more scary. I don't know. Depends on the night.
Yeah. This whole scene is hilarious to me. Joyce comes out and she wants to bond with Buffy and try to understand the slaying. And Buffy is pretty freaked out by it. But then a vampire shows up and Joyce cheers Buffy on. She's her exact words were, good honey, kill it. Which is hilarious to me. And then she gets a look at the vampire and she says, that's Mr. Sanderson from the bank.
I wonder, if Buffy was more connected, how often that would happen. She already occasionally comes across a vampire and she's like, I know you in real life, or when you were alive, I guess is the correct term there. But, yeah, I mean, if Sunnydale is quote-unquote as small of a town as they keep pretending like it is, then a lot of times Buffy's slaying people that she knew in real life. Again, I said in real life. Good Lord.
Yeah, there's a little part in the script that was cut out here. Because in the episode, after she says it's Mr. Sanderson from the bank, she goes, he's getting away. But there's a little exchange where Joyce says, are you sure you have to kill him? He opened my RA. Buffy forgets herself for a moment, turns to Joyce and says, he's not Mr. Sanderson anymore, Mom. And that's when Joyce yells, he's getting away. Kind of a cute little, he opened my RA.
Yeah.
I don't know what that RA is when Buffy comes back from the dead and has to take care of her.
We're not there yet.
Just saying.
Oh, man.
It seems to have disappeared.
So my note is that, when Joyce says he's getting away, Buffy commands her to stay and then chases the vampire. And I just put my nose this is the time Buffy chooses to chase after a vampire and just leave her mom alone.
I thought it was weird too, because in the dark, just let him go, because your mom, there could be another one.
Yeah, a lot of times they hunt in groups. We've seen this happen.
Yeah. So, Buffy fights the vampire and stakes him. Meanwhile, Joyce has wandered around the playground to pick up a toy truck and sees two dead children on the merry-go-round. In the script, it was supposed to be in the sandbox, but they're on the merry-go-round. And on the palm of the child's hand, one of the children is a symbol, which will be important later.
Yes.
And that's the end of the teaser.
Yeah. Now we're gonna get into a time where the police actually do their jobs in Sunnydale and they show up.
I have a lot of notes about the first part of this scene. A lot.
All right, go for it.
So we come back from the theme song, and there's police and all kinds of people around and lights and radios, and Buffy is giving a statement to the police. So here's my first thing. Are these different police from last year? Are these police who've never met Buffy? Because it's Sunnydale. It's conceivable that all the police force has been killed and replaced.
Yeah.
Since then. But wouldn't they remember that she was a murder suspect and that be a little suspicious? of her and these dead kids?
Yeah. Well, my big note for this whole section is it's another situation, and this kind of happens throughout the series. It's another situation where it frames the kid as the adult and the adult as the kid. But
that I have a whole bunch of that near the end, but I still have stuff for the first part.
All right, go.
When we have the scene where we have, like, I guess the coroner or medical examiner or whatever, he's taking pictures of the bodies of the kids and, like, doing his evidence and thing. And Joyce is, like, standing right there watching. Mm-hmm. Okay, so why? Why they wouldn't let her stay there? They would rope it off and make everyone back up. It's like she wouldn't be there that close watching this happen. But they're letting her, like, stand there and stare at these kids.
Yeah, that part actually doesn't bother me because not anything this severe, but I've reported to, like, car crashes and stuff when I used to work as a reporter, and it gets pretty chaotic, and it's kind of hard to rope stuff off and things like that. And especially, just the nature of how many crimes the Sunnydale Police Department have to report to. They're probably just like, all right, let's just get this done as quick as possible and move on. We're gonna have another call in 2 seconds.
And then I wonder why no one wonders about the parents here. Because, like, if I stumbled across something like this, one of my first thoughts would be, we need to find the parents.
Yeah.
Where are the parents? The parents should be around here somewhere. Why are there not parents looking for their 2 small children that are here dead and obviously not with them?
Yeah. I think that's part of the magic, though. Because that's kind of explained in the episode, is that, like, nobody really thinks about it until it's, like, it dawns on Buffy during that conversation later in the episode, and then she starts mentioning it to other people, and then they're like, oh, yeah, we should have thought about that. Why didn't we?
Well, see, I never really thought about it being part of the magic, because I always just assumed it was just everybody got so caught up in what they were doing that no one really ever thought of it.
Yeah.
Everyone just assumed somebody else knew and just did what they were doing. But, like, even at the vigil, like, where are their parents?
Yeah.
You would expect the parents to speak.
Yeah.
But nobody wonders about it.
Yeah.
Yes, at the end, during this scene, Buffy very much becomes the parent and Joyce the child.
Yes.
I've got that in my notes that they switched parent-child roles again. Buffy's being very reassuring and trying to calm her mom down, and Joyce is just like a basket case. Mm-hmm. I have this thought several times during this episode, like several times. They kind of act like this is the most horrific thing anyone has ever seen. Mm-hmm. And I get that it's 2 small children that are dead, and they're really, pretty children and everything, but, like, worse than this has happened in this show before.
Yeah.
2 kids. Like, Kinderstead was way worse killing kids. I'll mention it when we come to those parts. I'll bring it up again. It's very extreme for what it is.
Yeah. The issue I have is that it becomes so extreme that that there's got to be some kind of magical element. Yeah. It's so unrealistic to the point where you're just like, okay, where's the twist, right? That it's actually a magic thing.
Yeah, like literally escalating too quickly.
As Buffy is being the parent and comforting Joyce, she asks her to just kind of calm down, and then we cut to the library where Buffy yells at Giles to not tell her to calm down, and Giles is very just like taken aback and just like, okay, I only met. But again, like, Buffy even here in this moment is pretty dramatic. She's just like, they were kids, little kids, and my mom can't even talk. So, like, I feel like there's an area of effect going on across the town that causes this drama, but it's something that's easy enough to break free. It's like, it's kind of hit or miss on who it affects. And I don't know if you're more used to the occult, if you're more in that world. But Joyce is kind of one of those weird situations where she's enough of that world where she shouldn't be as affected as much as she is, but she's the instigator of everything. So I don't know if it's because she's the first to witness this, or, like, I don't understand how this area of effect works, but I definitely acknowledge that it's just a all-encompassing can consume the entire town area of effect, because that's what we've seen in the history that they go into later in the episode, is that it will just take over a town and cause the townsfolk to do terrible things, and then it will move on to the next town 50 years later. But it's very random and ill-explained for sure.
Giles and Buffy kind of finish their talk about what did it and how Buffy's gonna to get them, and she shows Buffy the symbol and tells him to find the person who uses it, or find what uses it.
When talking about the symbol, Giles mentions that it could be a cult or some kind of ritual sacrifice type situation, and that's when Buffy's like, you mean a group of human beings could have done this? Someone with a soul did this? And that's when Giles says that he's afraid so, and Buffy's just like, well, can you find me a loophole in that Slayers don't kill people rule? Which is a touch of foreshadowing for what's to come in this season. But
yeah, but that's not really something Buffy would normally say.
Yeah, it's one of those. Yeah, it's one of those. Again, I don't know if what's causing the outrage. Is it because Joyce is so affected by it, or if she herself is affected by it? Does that make sense? Like,
she seems to come out of it pretty easy.
Yeah, is the magic affecting Buffy, or is it just the fact that Joyce is affected by the magic that's affecting Buffy?
Or both.
Yeah, combination of the two. But she's definitely definitely very intense and ready to punch and fight and hurt people.
Yeah. I actually have in my notes that they're acting like kids never die in Sunnydale. Mm-hmm. Like, because they're acting like, I don't know, way more intense than this calls for. But at the same time, I feel really bad for saying that, because it's literally 2 little kids being murdered. Mm-hmm. Then we're in the cafeteria, and we have a scene with Oz and Xander together, alone. Mm-hmm. Well, not really alone. They're in line in the cafeteria.
They're in the cafeteria with dozens of students, but
alone. Just the 2 of them. They kind of have this very stilted conversation.
So a burrito. This is a burrito. Damn straight.
And pay for their lunches and go off. And here there's a little exchange between Amy and Willow before they get to the table that is absolutely useless and doesn't mean anything, but I thought I would share it anyway. They're carrying their trays looking for a table, and Amy says, "Oh God, and Mr. Newman, that thing he does with his face." And Willow says, "The thing with the face, when he makes a point that I always think he's going to sneeze." And Amy, "I thought I was the only one who saw it." And then they're like, "Hi Oz, hi Xander," and sit down with them.
There you go.
Which is kind of odd, because Amy doesn't normally hang around with this group. And this scene, we've got her like in it, like she's always there.
Yeah.
Which is kind of odd.
Yeah, there's a couple of notes that I have about Amy. Amy's definitely just kind of in this episode to have another witch. But, yeah, they have this moment after Amy and Willow join the table where Oz asks where Willow's been, and Xander just says, "Not with me, no sir, ask anyone, no." And there's a very poignant long pause between all of them that's so extended and stretched out that I really enjoy it. But there's also this little moment where Oz almost looks like he feels bad for Xander, because Xander's just so overcompensating. Really? There's just a moment where he's just kind of staring at him, and you can't really even tell what to read from it, other than he's not angry or annoyed. He's just kind of subtly absorbing where Xander's coming from.
Okay, now I feel like Oz's face was like those little faces that they show kids in kindergarten or first grade so that they can pick out emotions. Mm-hmm. Because you got sympathy for Xander from that, and I got anger. I thought Oz was having a moment of anger towards Xander, and then it's it's not worth it, and change the subject. And you're
the problem with Oz,
sure that it's not anger.
The problem with Oz is that he doesn't emote in extremes. Right. There's the subtlest of things.
That's why it was such a big deal, because he doesn't do that. He he showed an emotion on his face that was not devotion to Willow.
Yeah. And I mean, I suppose it could be read in both ways, but I certainly read it as he's just trying to figure out how to approach the Xander issue, because I think Oz knows that the Xander and Willow thing is over, but also the Xander and Willow thing is kind of never over because of the previous conversation that he had and the fact that he kind of understands that Xander is always going to be a part of Willow's life. So I think that there's something to be said about this idea of Oz trying to see things from Xander's perspective and understand that Xander's trying here, and he in his overcompensation kind of way. And I think there's a certain understanding there.
Yeah, there's no clues in the script because it just says Oz and Willow stare at Xander. There's an uncomfortable beat of silence. Then Oz has a brilliant idea for something to talk about. That's it. So no clues there.
Yeah, that was left entirely to the
viewer.
The actor and the director to put in whatever they want for the viewer to interpret whatever they want. And we got 2 different interpretations, which is pretty cool. So yeah, Oz does change the subject and brings up that Buffy's birthday is next week. And Xander gets really excited about the change of subject, and then Willow shushes him, and he's just like, we just got a topic. But that's when Buffy approaches and tells him about the kids.
And in this conversation, she basically tells them about the kids, and they all react like it's the most horrible thing they've ever heard. And I've got in my notes, again, that, it's sad, but it's not the first time that kids have died in this show. Buffy tells them about how her mom picked last night to join her for slaying to bond, and that she saw the kids. And Willow says, God, your mom would actually take the time to do that with you? And then that's really not the point of the story, is it? And so this is the very first time we hear this about Willow's mom. Actually, I think it's the first time we ever hear anything about Willow's mom.
Yeah, I think
She mentions her dad once in season 2, but never her mom. And this is the first time we hear that mom is very emotionally distant. So yeah. And now Joyce is there. She has found Buffy at school. And Joyce they talk about what happened last night, and Joyce says she has bad dreams all night, which is kind of a clue. Everybody says hi to her, and Buffy tells her mom that Giles says it might be something to do with the occult. And Joyce is like, witches? It's witches?
Some evil witches.
And Willow coughs, and then Joyce says, yeah, I know you dabble. And then Joyce very condescendingly says, well, anyone who could do this isn't cool. Anyone that could do this would have to be a monster. Okay, yeah, nobody at the table was wanting to kill kids. Joyce, calm down. Then Buffy is like, hey, Mom, come over here and let's talk to you somewhere else. And they have a little private conversation. But while they're doing that, we stay on Willow and Xander and Oz and Amy. And Willow makes another comment about how her mom has no interest in anything she's doing.
I find it weird that we have an episode that's, part of the conversation is about mother-daughter relationships. And in that episode, we bring back Amy. And in that episode, we also never mention Amy's mom.
Very good point.
Seems like a missed opportunity.
And then Joyce and Willow are talking, and they're about the investigation. And after a brief little exchange about Buffy being embarrassed about Joyce being at school, Joyce mentions that she called everyone she knows, and they called everyone that they know, and everybody's really upset, and that they're going to have a vigil at Town Hall tonight. Which, wow.
Yeah.
That was quick.
Yeah. The mayor's going to be there and everything.
Yeah, and this is lunchtime, the day after. So these phone calls happened quick.
Yes. This all happened this morning, I'm sure.
Buffy reminds her that, she's trying to investigate it and it should be kept quiet. Joyce is like, oh, there won't be that many people. And then we're at City Hall, and I think it's actually not that very many people because it's a show, but it's supposed to look like there's like tons and tons of people there. And they somehow have signs with photographs of the 2 dead children. And Buffy, Willow, and Joyce are there. They have a conversation, and Buffy says, this is great. Maybe we can all go patrolling later. And Willow says, at least your mom's making an effort. My mom's probably. And then she sees her mom and says, standing right in front of me. But it's weird that in this, we've already had 3 comments from Willow in this episode about how her mom doesn't care what she does.
Yeah.
Kind of setting up for, what her mom does in the episode. And then her mom's there.
Yeah.
And Mom is very much a intellectual and calls Buffy Bunny the whole time.
Yes.
Which is worth noting because it's kind of funny.
Yeah, this episode definitely suffers from some of the, I don't even know what the writing is there just because of things that have to happen in the plot. So we are laying heavily on this idea of Willow's bad relationship with her mom,
Which we'd never heard of before.
This episode, and we've assumed that she's had certainly a level of absent parents because everybody in Sunnydale does, but it's just like it's laid on so thick. She mentions it twice at lunch and then again here, and it's just like almost like that's part of Willow's character is that she always complains about her mom when it's literally never really happened before this episode.
Yeah, and I really enjoyed this episode, but they do kind of like shove that at you a lot. And so Willow's like, "Mom, what are you doing here?" And she says that she read about it in the paper, which I don't know how they managed to get the vigil at City Hall in the paper. This is still the day after.
Yeah, the Sunnydale Press or whatever it's called is an afternoon release schedule. It releases in the afternoon. Mid-afternoon is when it releases.
Well, I mean, there's some cities that are so big that there's a morning and an afternoon paper, but I'm pretty sure Sunnydale's not one of them.
Yeah. Well, I feel like it could be a reasoning to that is if they release in the afternoon, then they can cover all of the terrible things that happened the night before, because obviously that's when all of the terrible stuff happens.
And then we have, "Willow, you cut off your hair. That's a new look." And Willow says, "Yeah, it's just a sudden whim that I had in August." And so that one's really out there. So like her mom hasn't looked at her since August. I'm not really sure what month this is supposed to be.
It's post-Christmas.
Yeah. So like Mom hasn't looked at us in 4 or 5 months?
Yeah, well, she's got papers to write.
Yeah. And then Giles shows up and, makes a comment about how many people are there. And then there's a very awkward exchange between Giles and Joyce, which I think it's the very first time they've seen each other since Band Candy.
Mm-hmm.
And then Mrs. Rosenberg, Willow's mom, goes, "There's a rumor going around, Mr. Giles." And he's like, "A rumor about us? What?" Talking about him and Joyce, and she gives him this look, like, "Get it together." But this is hilarious. And watching it now, like, knowing, it's almost like, how did we not know?
Yeah.
Because I didn't. The first time I watched through, I did not realize they had slept together. Like, they kissed on the police car, but, like, I didn't realize they had sex there. So, yeah, anyway. Then Mrs. Rosenberg says about witches, and that witches are responsible, and they're like, "Oh, it's strange." Then Willow's mom starts talking about having co-authored a paper about mysticism among adolescents. It's like, okay. And then I don't understand this next part.
Okay.
The mayor comes up and he does his little, "Oh, this is so tragic. We'll never have it happen again. I'll take care of it" speech. Why does the mayor, I don't understand. The mayor controls what happens in Sunnydale.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand why he doesn't, make Joyce go away.
Yeah, there's a weird, I almost wish we had a scene after we reveal that the kids are the one controlling this whole situation, or the demon representing as kids, and kind of have a scene with just the mayor and, Trick or the deputy mayor or something, where it was along the lines of, "This is the reasoning I decided not to focus on this," or whatnot. Just something to kind of show that he's aware of the situation, but it almost seems like either he's just doing it to save face, or he's doing it because he's under the effects himself. Which I don't believe he would be. I believe he would be far beyond the effects of whatever this weird little demon that pops up every 50 years.
Yeah. And it could be that he's just making the people happy, because he's a mayor. That's what he does. But he does his little speech, and then he invites Joyce to talk, and she's supposed to do a moment of silence, but instead she goes way off script and talks about how awful Sunnydale is and how people have neck rupture and die and stuff. And she says, it's not our town anymore. It belongs to the monsters and the witches and the slayers. And I'm like, okay. And at this point, I would think that the mayor would like have her killed. Mm-hmm. Because she's bringing this, she's like making this stuff public knowledge.
Yeah.
And then I have a question for you. I'm curious. When she says that it belongs to the monsters and the witches and the slayers, we see Buffy and Giles with these looks on their face. What did you think that was?
The looks on their face? I just read those as shock, like what Joyce was saying. Yeah.
A shock that she would let this secret out. Oh my God, Mom, what are you doing?
Yeah.
You know this is a secret. In the script book, it describes those looks as Buffy is upset and hurt because her mom compared slayers to the monsters. Like was lumping them all in together, that a slayer was just like the monsters and the vampires and everything. Mm-hmm. And so it hurt her feelings.
Yeah.
That is not what I got from her look. She just looked shocked to me.
Yeah, like, I feel like...
I wondered if I had missed it.
I feel like Buffy's more just shocked and irritated with her mom after this section. Because you even have the scene later on where she's just like, and come on, Moo, great job, Mom. You know, I mean, she's just kind of annoyed by the whole situation.
But to be fair, that's really bad.
Yeah. But, yeah, I don't know what to do with the mayor bit myself. Because I'm kind of like you, like, what is the logical reaction for the mayor after this? Because he knows that Buffy's the Slayer, so he doesn't necessarily want to just tick off the Slayer by killing her mom. But at the same time, there is a certain amount of loose cannon, especially shown in this scene, where Joyce is just, you know, spitting out all of this quote-unquote secret information. But also at the same time, selective amnesia is a thing in Sunnydale that we in fact acknowledge in this episode later on. Yep. So maybe the mayor's just like, you know, it'll correct itself. So yeah, Joyce has a purpose, and several of the people in the crowd join in applause after this. I do like that she has the line, I say it's time for the grown-ups to take Sunnydale back, which I think is a subtle nod to where it's the kids manipulating this, because I always flash to, there's a line in Gilmore Girls when Lorelai is explaining to Rory that grown-ups don't refer to themselves as grown-ups. They always refer to themselves as adults. So anytime grown-ups is used, it always sounds like a very childish way of explaining what an adult is. And so I'm wondering, like, if that's part of the idea of these are the kids saying, you have to fix this, you're the grown-ups. And so that was Joyce. The little subtle hint there that the grown-ups have to take Sunnydale back is actually the kids talking through the adults kind of situation. But yeah, all the adults, you know, Willow's mom and everybody else that have gathered there are in full support of taking back Sunnydale. So after that, we go to Willow's house.
Is it at Willow's house?
I have it in the transcript that I pulled up for this that it says it's shot in Willow's house, but it may or may not be. It says there, it says that you can see it from like the street. You can see that it's Willow's house, but I'm not familiar enough with the exterior of Willow's house to know that that's Willow's house.
Yeah, it just says a darkened room in the script book.
Anyway, so yeah, there's magic going on. And we see a boy that we learn's name is Michael later in the episode, and Amy and eventually Willow casting this spell, and as it pans out, it shows on the floor the same symbol that was on the children's hands. So, uh-oh.
Yeah, and it kind of sets this up to look evil. Mm-hmm. With like a skull.
Yeah.
I'm just kind of why would they need a skull for a protection spell? But anyway.
Well, and it's always, I feel like the nature of when they're trying to do these fake out magic things is it has to look super complicated. Whereas a lot of magic, I mean, sometimes you have to like mix up some herbs and sometimes you have to light some candles. But a lot of magic in the Buffyverse isn't quite this intense. You don't have to have quite this many things going on all at once.
Well, and they literally set this up so that everyone looks like they're doing something evil, including Willow. Mm-hmm. And, I mean, it's not like anyone's going to fall for that.
Yeah, it lasts for like half a second.
6.
Yeah, it lasts for like half a second, and it's just... So, yeah.
Yeah.
We'll get in. I kind of feel like I'm just muddling through this episode because there's a lot about this episode. I feel like if I just turn my brain off and watch it, I enjoy it well enough. But when I really start like looking at it and dissecting it, I'm just like, ooh, this... I don't really understand what they were going for in this episode because there's a lot of stupid fake outs that don't really go anywhere. Yeah. There's the introduction of this character, Michael, which we, see in the next scene. Next scene is like...
But after this episode,
yeah,
never seen it again.
Yeah. In the next scene, we see him just kind of get bullied a little bit and picked on, like everybody knows him, and like talk about how he's gonna, put a spell on these bullies and stuff like that. Like everybody knows that he's into witchcraft, and it's just one of these throwaway characters that's brought in here, and you don't really know what he adds to the story other than having a third witch that isn't even like brought into the like part at the end where they're all at the stake and burned. Like he gets away. He's just in there. He serves no purpose. I mean, it could be potentially argued how much purpose does Amy serve in this episode too. I mean, she just exists for a bit and then turns into a rat. So I don't know. I feel like there's a lot chucked into this
before we see her again.
Yeah. There's a lot just chucked in here. I do enjoy this scene, though, where it's, the bullies picking on Michael, and Amy's trying to, like, get him to back down, and then Buffy just kind of steps in, and the bullies are just like, yep, nope, we're good here, no problem.
And then Buffy is starting to walk toward Giles, like, to the library to talk to Giles, and Cordelia steps up.
Like, pops out of nowhere.
Yeah, like, where'd you come from? And is like, yeah, we know witches killed those kids, and Amy's a witch, and Michael is whatever the boy witch is. And Cordelia threatens, kind of warns her, if you hang with them, you need to expect badness. Which, okay. And like, how does everyone know Amy is a witch all of a sudden?
Yeah, like, it's suddenly very public knowledge. And I don't know if this is supposed to be part of...
Oh, well, like, Cordelia would know because of the love spell.
But, like, on the, like, the Michael and Amy and them, like, hazing Michael in the scene before, it's kind of framed like that's just something that Michael deals with all the time. But the fact that they specifically talk about the witchcraft aspect, I wonder if that's also motivated by the demon's area of effect on Sunnydale, and that's why they're attacking him. Could be.
As Cordelia was walking away, Buffy says, I get that, but witches didn't do it. And then Giles is like, actually.
Well.
No, I think they might have. And then he mentions that the symbol comes back to Covens, and he needs something in a book that Willow borrowed. And so Buffy goes to get it. And she walks up on Xander, sitting in the little student area, and asks if Willow's there, and Xander kind of gets crazy again. He's like, I don't know where she is. Why do you assume I always know where she is? And Buffy's like, yeah, is that her stuff? And Xander's like, yep, she's in the bathroom.
Yeah.
Which is very funny. There are some funny moments in this episode.
Yeah, you get that Espensonian dialogue every now and again. Remember Espensonian dialogue? There is also an exchange where Xander's like, well, it doesn't change anything, and I have a genuine complaint here, and I'm sick of the judgment. A man is innocent until proven guilty. And Buffy's just like, but you are guilty.
And then Xander's like, yeah, but I'm talking about future guilt.
And I feel like, I don't know, like for me, I like the read that Oz is kind of looking at Xander with understanding, and Xander's interpreting that as like anger and judgment and all of this stuff. I kind of like that version of it because like Xander goes on about, his steely gaze and that pointed silence and all of that stuff. And he's just like, it's a verbal, non-verbal. He speaks volumes with his eyes and all of that judgment that's being cast his way. And literally it's such a blank, hard to determine stare that we read it as completely different things in that moment before. But I kind of feel like Xander would be the one to jump to the conclusion that it's definitely like hatred and rage and like, he wants Xander out of the picture forever and he's going to continue to make Xander feel like he's the worst person ever.
Well, that's kind of the way Xander treats Angel. So,
yeah,
it makes sense he would think other people would act that way.
Yeah. If somebody has that, has the same feelings that you have for somebody, then they're automatically an enemy kind of aspect.
And then, okay, so Buffy starts looking at Willow's stuff, and she sees the symbol. And Willow comes back, and it's like, hey, what you looking for? And Willow kind of tries to play it off like, it's a doodle. No big deal.
I do doodle. You too. You do doodle too.
Buffy's like, this is a witch symbol. And Willow's like, okay. And then Buffy's like, this was on the kids. Like, why do you have this? And then all of a sudden we hear big commotion and clatter. And it seems that Snyder and the entire police force of Sunnydale are raiding everyone's lockers.
Mm-hmm.
Because we assumed that it was teenagers who did the murdering.
So this becomes even further into my, like, where does the mayor stand on all of this? Because this is the police department that we know the mayor has complete control of, and Snyder that we know the mayor has complete control of.
Yeah, is he just trying to make, like, support any kind of chaos or what?
Yeah, and I don't know if he's hoping that inadvertently, like, I mean, Buffy is ultimately one of the ones that's tied up. So, like, maybe he's thinking, this will take care of part of my problem if they nab some people associated with the occult, you know? I don't know what if that's part of the direction he was hoping that it would go by doing this. But, like, I can't imagine in any realm that the mayor is affected by this magic. So he has to be completely aware that this is going on and something's causing this extreme reaction and plays along with it for whatever means that he sees that he could get out of it. But I don't really understand his motivations because we don't get enough of him in this episode to see any motivation.
But yeah, they're going through lockers and all the kids are watching, and Xander says, oh man, it's Nazi Germany and I have Playboys in my locker.
Because that's an appropriate comparison to make, Xander. Thank you.
That's exactly what I have in my notes. Like, why does everyone do this? This is almost never an appropriate comparison. Occasionally it might be in the political world, but like almost never is this an okay comparison to make.
Yeah. Especially in a locker search where you're concerned about your Playboys being discovered as a teenage boy. Well, I mean, they wouldn't bat an eyelash at that. They just move on.
But like, it's not okay what they're doing, but it's also not Nazi Germany either.
Yeah.
Anyway, Snyder is just gushing about getting to do it. And Oz tells Buffy and Willow that they just took 3 kids away. And Buffy says, I don't get it. What are they looking for? And here's my thing. Where did they take these kids? To Snyder? To the mayor? Where did they go?
Yeah, because Amy says that
she has to report to Snyder's office.
But then she is escorted away by police just a moment later.
But like, where are these kids taken?
Yeah.
They discuss how they're looking for witch stuff. And Amy says, they found my spells. I'm supposed to report to Snyder's office. And I have in my notes here that, you know, like she was supposed to report to the office, but the others were taken away. What in the world was in their lockers?
Yeah, I just wonder if it's kind of weird how it's framed. And there's a lot of different themes that this episode is playing and different commentaries that this episode kind of plays around with for like a minute and then moves on from without actually ever developing. But like, I feel like what's actually happening here is that the police are basically escorting the students that have contraband to wait outside of Snyder's office, and then Snyder is addressing the issue. Because it's just kind of weird the way it's framed. Because like, what else would the circumstances be? But it's really like thrown out. I mean, you have that Nazi Germany line. You have the search and the, you know, they've been taken away and stuff like that. Caught with stuff that proves their guilt. And there's a lot of like touches on, you know, people's right to believe certain things and worship the way they want to because of the nature of Wiccan being an actual belief. Then you also obviously have the drug metaphors that are riddled throughout. You get when they go into the library and start taking that stuff away, censorship commentary that's kind of thrown in there. Like, it's just a lot. There's just a lot of little things that they throw in that they don't really do anything with.
It's kind of like
the controlling issue. Like, they're going to control the books, and they're going to control what people have in their lockers, and they're going to control what people do and all that.
Yeah.
They're just kind of trying to... but meanwhile, while they're doing the lockers, they are in Cordelia's locker, and they pick up a can of hairspray that she comments that costs $45 and is imported. And so at this point, I'm assuming they're still not having, her parents are still not having financial problems.
Well, my gut is the fact that she reacted so strongly to that when $45 to Cordelia wouldn't really be that much in my mind to replace, is that maybe this is one of the first subtle signs that she's just like, I can't replace a $45 thing of hairspray. That's probably reading way too much into it. But still, I think ultimately they didn't really plant any seeds to show that they're having money troubles. It just kind of like gets thrown in there at the end of the season. But it could be a real stretch to say, oh, she's panicked over a $45 bottle of hairspray. So, maybe that's a sign.
Well, then Willow mentions that she has stuff in her locker, and she's like, "Well, Buffy, I didn't do anything wrong. It's a protection symbol for you for your birthday, and we did it. Me and Amy and Michael did it." And then the principal is like, "Miss Rosenberg, come to my office," and he, is holding up the stuff she had in her locker, which I guess he's getting personally involved because it's Willow, because he wasn't personally involved.
She's a main cast member, so that's why.
Yeah. So Willow has to go, but she's still holding the book and the notebook with the symbol in it. So Buffy just very casually reaches out and takes the books and walks away. Mm-hmm. And then she heads for the office, and there's this part here that I love, that Oz goes with her. Mm-hmm. Because it's Oz, and he's not going to let her go by herself.
Yeah.
So he just follows her. And they let him. Like, nobody tries to stop him.
Everybody loves Oz. You can't say no to that man.
I'm gonna go. I don't know what's fixing to happen, but I'm going with you. And then, like I said, Buffy goes to the library, and there are all kinds of cops taking books. Willow is very upset. I mean, no, Giles is very upset.
Willow would have been upset. She would have been just crying in the corner. No. Yeah.
They're taking all his books, and Buffy's like, we need the books, and Giles is like, yeah, I know. And Buffy explains that the symbol is harmless. It was used in a protection spell, and Giles is like, I don't know, I'd suggest we widen our research, but like all the books are gone. And then Snyder comes in and basically starts, rubbing it in. Principal Snyder picks up a book that's called Blood Rights and Sacrifices, and wants to know how that is appropriate for a public school library. And Giles is like, you know what? That's my personal research stuff.
Is that in the script? Because in the episode, he just says this is not over.
Oh, okay. Is the stuff about the weapons in the show too?
No.
Okay. So, Principal Snyder, he says, oh, you're so fierce. I suppose I should hear you out. Just how is Blood Rights and Sacrifices appropriate material for a public school library? Is the chess club branching out? And Giles says, these items are my personal research materials. I assure you, everything is perfectly harmless. But right as Giles speaks, one of Snyder's police officers opens a cabinet in the book cage, revealing a brutal assortment of weaponry, crossbows, axes, and spears. As Snyder grins. And Giles says, they're antiques. And Principal Snyder says, so are you, a relic of a progressive era that is finally coming to an end. Welcome to the new age. And Giles says, this isn't over. And I think this is where it starts back in the show.
Yeah.
I'd say it's just beginning. Fight me if you want, but if you lift a finger against me, you'll have to answer to Moo.
Yeah.
This is mothers opposed to the occult.
Yeah, this is way more like extremist new reign affirming with that little back and forth where Snyder's just like, welcome to the way the world is going to be from now on. It's interesting.
You know what? Some people aren't meant to have power.
But it's so funny too, because does he just not know? Because I know, like, in the final episode, he gets really mad at the mayor when the mayor turns into a giant snake demon. And he's just like,
Which
no,
seems weird.
I want this
'Cause he's-
order and stuff like that. So does he just not know that the mayor is part of the occult? Like, does he just completely unaware of that fact until he becomes a giant snake demon?
Yeah, which it doesn't even make sense because he's terrified of the mayor in previous episodes.
Yeah, it's Snyder's a weird dude. Anyway, Buffy's just like, answer to Moo, and Snyder explains that's mothers opposed to the occult, a powerful new group. And she's just like, who came up with that lame name? And he was just like, I believe you call her Mom. And dun dun dun. Joyce is the cause of all of our woes, is basically what's going on here. Now we are with Willow and her mom. Willow comes in to find her mom kind of sitting down with several bits of contraband. And Willow's like, Principal Snyder talked to you. And her mom's just like, yes, he was quite concerned. And then kind of goes on to say that you don't have to explain. This isn't exactly a surprise. Identification with mythical icons is perfectly typical of your age group.
Yeah. I'm not an age group. It's me, Willow group.
Yeah. So there could be several things that could be like, what is this a metaphor for? Because obviously... could be a metaphor for drugs, could be a metaphor for religion, could be a metaphor for sexuality. There's a lot of different places you could take it. And some of them become really, really upsetting when she says the line, I just wish you could have identified with something a little less icky. It is kind of interesting. Like, in ways I see it as a negative that it throws so much at you that you could interpret in different ways, but in other ways it's kind of interesting to have that ambiguity so that different people could read different things into this. But like, as we get into more of the parent-child situation where the parents become more and more controlling, but then also willing to kill their kid for this, there becomes a situation where I'm almost like, how irresponsible could this episode potentially be if there's somebody who's watching, again, understanding that this show is made with a younger audience in mind, like, if somebody has a bad relationship with their parents or has something that they're hiding from their parents that they think their parents won't understand, how irresponsible is it to have an episode like this where part of the idea is something is discovered about the kid and the parent is so distraught that they're willing to kill their child?
Yeah, that is. Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I've got my notes here in the part where Willow's mom tells her, this is your way of trying to get my attention, and so, now you're grounded.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, that's not how you give attention. If your child's trying to get your attention, guess what? It's because they need your attention. And also, grounding is not how you give it.
Yeah.
That's different. That's a very different thing.
Yeah.
That part kind of upset me.
Yeah.
Like, really?
Yeah.
That's not... She even says, I've consulted some of my colleagues and they all agree. And I'm like, really? All these like intellectual type people agree with you that you should ground her because she's acting out for attention? Mm-hmm. Not that I think Willow is doing that, but that her mom thinks she's doing that. So,
well, and it's also interesting that instead of denying it or explaining it as something else, that Willow talks openly about the fact that she does witchcraft and can actually, like, do spells. Like, talks openly about it with her mother. And then gets more and more sarcastic about it and becomes, ridiculous in this scene. But it's just like, what's the motivation for Willow here? Like, this would make sense if we had a long-standing understanding that Willow has a really bad relationship with her mom. But to throw this all into one episode and to never really deal with it before or after this episode. Because I think there is an aspect to the idea that Willow, framed in this episode, craves attention from her mother, but also is grateful for the fact that she doesn't have attention in certain areas. But yeah, I think that that's what they're trying to play with, is that this idea that maybe it is, again, one of those things that could be read as, my mom doesn't pay any attention to me, and now suddenly she's paying attention to me because of this. So I'm going to like double down and start talking about sacrificing goats and, summoning Satan.
Well, and then her mom tells her she can't ever talk to Bunny Summers ever again. Like never in the history of being a parent has demanding that your child not speak to someone or be friends with someone made them not be friends with that person.
Yeah.
And you would think, as she's supposed to be so smart, she would know that. And then we immediately go to Joyce telling Buffy, I don't want you ever seeing that Willow again. I had no idea she was so much of a witch. Like, okay. Yeah, Buffy and Willow are never going to see each other again.
Yeah. So say their parents.
And then we have this scene where Buffy and Joyce are talking about what happened at school, and about the books and searching the lockers. And Joyce is like, they just opened a few lockers. Like, it's no big deal. Mm-hmm. And then said that he'll get most of the books back, that Moo just wants to weed out the offensive material, and then that those books had no business in a public school library. Any student could waltz in there and get all sorts of ideas. And both of those comments enrage me. You don't get to decide what is offensive.
Yeah.
Or what is appropriate books. Like, yeah, no. You don't get to decide that. Mm-hmm. It just, those comments make me so mad. They're so, Joyce, you are not in charge of what people read and see and get to know about.
Yeah, like I feel like the aspects of censorship and book burning that exists in this episode, and the fact that we had the throwaway Nazi Germany line, we're going to mention the Salem witch trials later on, like there's definitely something that they were going for, this kind of like extremist outlook and this almost dystopian outlook on how a society should be ran. But it's just like thrown in bits and pieces and never gels together completely for me.
This is why it enraged me, because it made me, and you are more than welcome to cut this part out if you want to. And it'll just be like me and you discussing it, because I don't know if we want to get political in it or not. But like this made me think about all the conservative people right now wanting to censor anything they don't want their kid to know about. Mm-hmm. So we're going to censor history. We're going to parts of history. We're going to censor parts of science. We're going to censor all this stuff and just never let our kids know about it because we don't want them to know about it. And they don't get to decide what facts people get to know about.
Yeah.
And this situation going on in the world right now with that makes me so mad. And both these sentences just made me grit my teeth.
Yeah. Because
it reminds me of what's going on right now. And, like, you don't get to decide that this is not appropriate for someone to know about when it is actual fact. Mm-hmm. It's actual history. It's actual science. And I know that this episode was, like, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
But it still makes me think of that and everything.
Well, and obviously there's been ongoing issues with things like book banning and censoring forever. So like I feel like there's ways in which this episode really work, and there's ways in which this episode really doesn't work. I think probably in my mind the issue with this episode is that it tries to do too much. And like I watched Passion of the Nerds video on this, and he said, like, this could have been a season arc. Like, there was so much to play with the idea of the adults of Sunnydale taking back the town, right? Mm-hmm. Like, this could have been a longer, drawn-out thing. And it feels very rushed. I don't know if I would have liked a season of this, but I think there is something to be said about the fact that part of my annoyance with this episode is there's things that aren't realized the way I feel like they should be. And part of the things that one thing that I noted is that we've seen again and again how easily Joyce can hurt Buffy. Even when Buffy knows that there's reasons why Joyce is acting the way she is, there's still something that, like, that's her, like, weakest spot, right? If something is said that's negative about Buffy, and it comes out of her mom's mouth, she's very hurt. She takes it very personally. And I could see a situation where that was intended in parts, but it didn't play out in this episode. Because obviously you had the script section before where she was really hurt that she was lumped in with demons and such in her mom's eyes.
She just looks shocked.
Yeah, she just looks shocked. And here she's more annoyed than anything. She's just like...
Yeah, she's like...
Yeah.
It's here... It's like the third time that she's heard that being a Slayer isn't worth anything. Because she heard it that the night that they found the kids, when her mom told her, you can't make it right, you can't fix it. And then at the vigil, when her mom was just like, yeah, it belongs to all of them. And now here, when her mom's like, you don't have a plan, you just react. And you're not really making anything any better.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like the third time, and Buffy's probably like, you know what? I'm done listening to this.
Mm-hmm.
And it literally says in the script book that Buffy's hurt again, but that she turns it into anger.
Yeah, which I think is kind of how this scene plays, but knowing how Buffy reacts, like going back to like Band Candy, and how hurt she is when Joyce is just like, back off. You know, leave me alone, back off. And Buffy's just so hurt. And then this, where Joyce is literally just like, you're kind of worthless. And Buffy's just like, well, you suck too.
Yeah.
You have stupid lapel pins. Take
Which
that.
She does. I think one of the reasons that these parts of this episode bother me so much is I'm one of those parents that believe that if your child is ready to ask about it, they're ready to know about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I just hate this.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, you answer in child terms,
Mm-hmm.
but I mean, if they're ready to ask, then they're ready to know. And apart from the regular stuff, or like the normal stuff, like the Easter Bunny and Santa and stuff like that, I don't lie to them.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, I hate the idea of someone deciding that they get to keep any kind of information for someone else because they think they know better than that person. They think, hey, they don't need to know this. I know better. And they don't get to decide for themselves.
Yeah.
And it just, this whole scene just erased it. Ugh. And she's so condescending about it too, when she explains why they're doing it.
Buffy, after having enough of her mom and getting put down, goes on patrol, and as she leaves, Joyce kind of says, I was just trying to make things better, and that's when the dead boy and girl appear, just sitting at the table, real casual, saying that she is, and that there's bad people out there, and that they can't sleep, not until you hurt them.
And if you didn't realize it before, there's something messed up about these kids. You know it now.
Yeah.
It is not arguable now.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting. They say we can't sleep, kind of meaning like they can't go to their final resting point, but then you also have that line earlier where Joyce says like she was up all night with nightmares. And so I also wonder if an aspect of this demon is that they also keep the people that they're controlling awake. Because man, if there's something that'll mess you up, it's sleep deprivation. And so like, that's also like potentially just an aspect of how they can mess people up fast, is just keep them awake by constantly being there and being like, you have to save us. You have to make everything right again. So while on patrol, Buffy decides to visit the playground again, and there's been a lot of things set up to commemorate the kids. And like, you know, I always found this weird. Like, people do this, like, if somebody dies in a car accident, they leave stuff where the car accident happened. I always just find that weird to, like, leave pictures and candles and flowers at the place of death instead of at a grave.
Yeah.
But anyway, she's there, and Angel approaches and they kind of embrace for a moment, and Buffy asks how he is, and he says that he's all right. He thinks he's better than she is right now. And he even mentions that everybody's talking about it. They're even talking to me, which I'm just like, who's talking to Angel? I guess they're handing flyers out in the streets and he was just walking along and somebody came up to him. I don't know. Like, who's got Angel on speed dial? I want to know. But yeah, Buffy's at this point starting to be like, okay, yeah, but this is strange, right? You know, there's stuff happens all the time in Sunnydale. And Angel here is kind of trying to justify it, that it's children and it makes a difference because they're innocent. And that's when Buffy's just like, and Mr. Sanderson had it coming.
She has a point that, you know, all these people are innocent. But I kind of disagree here. I believe that, you know, like some children are more innocent than adults. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to go out there. The vast majority of the time, any child is going to be more innocent than any adult.
Yeah.
You know.
And we see throughout history that, you know, if something terrible happens to a child, it's going to elicit more of a response than if something terrible happens to an adult. So all of that is very understandable. But the fact is that there's been a lot of terrible things to happen to children in this show. So, you know, Buffy continues to try to, like, you know, figure out why these kids, why is this one, you know, causing moo to happen. Mm-hmm. So she's talking about how her mom says that she's not making it any difference, and Angel kind of says that she's wrong and that he's still kind of figuring things out himself, but, you know, it's important to keep fighting, and then echoing back those words to her. And then, like, really laid in some of the, like, deeper Angel philosophy.
But we never
win.
Not completely.
Never will. That's not why we fight. We do it because there's things worth fighting for.
It's a kind of a brief Angel scene, but man,
oh yeah,
is it
why we fight?
Yeah, it's very consistent with the direction that Angel is heading, and I like it. But yeah, as he's talking about this, he mentions they're part of who they fight for is like those kids and their parents, and that's when Buffy's just like, oh, wait a second, we should know who their parents are.
Yep, it finally clicked for Buffy that.
So it goes to the library. Giles is trying to work on a computer in a fabulous scene.
Yes,
he calls them a fad. It's great.
Oh yeah. I was wanting to point that out too, that he literally calls computers a fad, and in my notes I have, well.
Xander and Oz come in, and they explain that they found their books, but they can't get to them. They're locked up in City Hall. So, like, the mayor's involved. I don't understand, but the mayor's involved. Maybe he just got a bunch of free books. Mm-hmm. So Buffy walks in. Xander starts to explain about the books, but Buffy interrupts and says, "What do we know about these kids? We don't know their names. This should be a red flag."
Yeah.
Giles has this moment where he's just like, I just assumed someone had the details. I never really. And then he pauses and says, well, that is strange. And so I think that's a magic thing. Like, Giles is kind of like at a realization. He's just like, I should have been looking for that, and I wasn't. Why wasn't I looking for that? And that's kind of that moment. Yeah.
I never really thought of it that way. I agree. I think that it very much was a magic thing. I just never realized.
Yeah.
I always thought they just didn't think about it. Mm-hmm. You know, everything was moving so fast and people were becoming obsessed that nobody thought about it.
Yeah.
They decide they're going to look on the computer, and Oz, they talk about needing Willow's help, and they're like, well, she's not allowed to come to the phone, which, how does Buffy know that? If she's not allowed to come to the phone, how does Buffy know that she's not allowed to come to the phone?
Magic.
Magic, yeah. And Oz is like, we don't need a phone. And all of a sudden, Willow is sitting on her bed playing with the teddy bear. and he links Willow or chat rooms or something. I don't know what he would have done in 1999.
Yeah, I think his line is like, what is it? We're linked. He just says we're linked. Yes.
Yeah.
Cool.
And she pulls up newspaper articles, and 50 years ago, 2 children were found dead with a mysterious mark. And Xander's like, oh, those aren't our kids. That was in 1949. And then the picture comes up, and it is their kids.
Mm-hmm.
And somehow Buffy has to look at the picture in her hand to make sure.
Yeah.
Which I'm just like, whatever, it's those kids. And then they discover 1899. And then that as far back as 1649, every 50 years, there were more articles. Like, I'm a history buff. I love history. And I know a lot about history. But I will admit that I do not know if they had newspaper articles back to 1649, and that they had enough of them that they would be saved today so that we knew what they said.
Yeah, right. There definitely should have been newspapers back at that time. I believe, like, if I'm getting
articles and stuff. Even if it was just like a flyer or something.
But the idea that it's so readily available on the internet in the late 90s. I
don't even know that it would be readily available now.
Yeah. I mean, we've done a lot more to archive stuff, and it's taken a long time to do so. But now there's like a paywall. That's the thing that makes it harder. More than anything, there's just a paywall.
Well, anyway, they find articles back to 1649. And Giles says it written by a cleric from a village near the Black Forest. He found the bodies of 2 children, Greta Strauss and Hans Strauss, aged 6 and 8. And Xander's like, well, they have names. That's new. And then all of a sudden, the screen goes, I don't know if this happens in the show. It's in the book, where all of a sudden the screen goes black and it says access to the site denied.
That does not happen in the show.
Okay. So in the script book, they had a thing where the screen goes black and it says access to this site denied on it. And then, we see Willow turn off her computer, and then her mom come in and says, you're not minding me, Willow. But she's freaking 17 years old. But okay, you're not minding her. And then she says, I thought I made myself clear. And she takes the computer. And I'm like, you never said anything about the computer. Because she didn't.
No.
She just told her to go to her room.
And that she wasn't allowed to see Bunny Summers anymore.
Right. But now she's like, I will not have you communicating with your cyber coven. And Willow's, well, I thought I was delusional. And she's like, I think I've been rather close-minded. I do believe that you're a witch. And now all I can do is let you go with love. And then locks her in her room.
Yeah. I noted that, like, the door lock is, like, the reverse of what it would normally be. Mm-hmm. Like, the keyhole's on the inside of the room instead of the outside of the room. And I'm just like, is that something that's happened since this whole event unfolded? Like, did she preemptively, when she went through her room and find all of that stuff, change that around so that she could lock her in her room? Or is that just the way that their house is set up? Because that's weird.
Yeah, it kind of is.
It goes back to the library, and Giles starts to put some pieces together and explain stuff in complicated ways, and Buffy doesn't understand, but Oz gets it, because Oz is a genius.
Yes, I love this scene. Are you going to put the clip in?
Sure.
There is a fringe theory held by a few folklorists that some regional stories have actual, very literal antecedents.
And in some language, that's English?
Fairy tales are real.
And then Buffy's like, Hans and Greta. Hansel and Gretel? So she had a light bulb moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all falling into place. Of course, this place is nowhere near this place.
Yeah. And basically, Giles says that these demons thrive on fostering persecution and hatred, and they feed us our darkest fear and turn peaceful communities into vigilantes.
Mm-hmm.
Which, honestly, I feel like this is kind of a comment on society, because it doesn't take much.
Yeah.
It really does not take much to turn people into this in real life.
And that's kind of the nature of why this demon is potentially really cool. I don't think it turns out really cool. And the final fight is kind of weak sauce, but the idea is, again, this is more of a psychological evil than a threatening, menacing, I'm gonna fight you demon, right? Because obviously the final encounter is fairly lackluster. But the psychological aspect of this demon, and I kind of wish that they never turned it into an actual demon, but also, you can't have Buffy kill kids on a TV show, even though they're a demon. You still can't put that on TV. So they had to turn it into a demon. So I get the practicality of it, but I like the nature of...
Could have just done something to have them disappear.
Yeah, they could have had Giles cast a spell and then magic saved, the town rather than a pointy stick. But
But they're having a conversation and Xander says, I'm still spinning on the whole fairy tales are real thing. But didn't they learn that already with the Kinderstad?
Yeah.
Like a fairy tale.
Probably. I don't know,
they already know
even if they didn't technically know that, all fairy tales are real or whatever this is supposed to technically reveal, the fact that it's shocking to Xander is kind of far-fetched, because I'm just like, dude, you fight vampires. Your best friend's a superhero.
Yeah. And as far as I'm concerned, the only thing in the fantasy world, in Sunnydale, the only thing in the fantasy world not real is leprechauns. Because that one conversation that Buffy and Giles have, where she mentions something about, I know two things, and one of them was leprechauns aren't real. And she's wrong about the first one, and she says, yeah, but I'm right about the leprechauns. And Giles says, to the best of my knowledge, or something like that. I don't know it exactly.
Yeah.
But as far as I'm concerned, leprechauns are not real. And we never see one once in the entire Buffyverse.
Yeah.
So that backs me up.
I think, not to burst your bubble, but I think a leprechaun does exist in one of the comics. I can't remember if it's a canon comic, and I know it's dimensional shenanigans that result in a leprechaun, but there is a comic that exists somewhere that's Buffy interacting with a leprechaun.
I'm so gonna pretend you didn't say that.
Anyway, I like the concept of this demon. I don't necessarily like everything about the execution, but this line, and this happens a lot, is that they have a really cool concept that's usually given in one line of dialogue by Giles in one section of the episode, and if you blink, you miss it, and you're just kind of like, what was that all about? But, this is the concept of using the inherent, conflicts that exist within mankind to create hatred and cause terrible things to happen just by simply kind of, planting that seed and motivating it. And this happens very quickly. I mean, what is this, 2 days since they discovered the kids? So this is kind of crazy how fast this can happen. But just the nature of this demon in general, I don't really understand the timetable thing. It has to just pop up every 50 years and then it's good. But it is interesting that the way that Giles explains it is that there's a lot of demons like this that aren't really about doing the harm themselves, but just planting the seeds necessary to cause men to destroy each other. It's a cool concept, but again, it's one of those things that you develop this really cool psychological evil, and then it becomes a weird, angry demon guy that chases after Buffy, and Buffy has to kill.
Right at the end, Giles decides she has to tell her mom, and Michael comes running in the library.
Mm-hmm.
And he has got a bloody nose and bruises, and Xander's like, what happened? He says, I was attacked by my dad and his friends. They're taking people out of their homes, and there's a trial at City Hall, and they got Amy. And then immediately Oz is just like, Willow. And so him and Xander go to try to get Willow, and Buffy and Giles are going to go find Joyce.
Yeah, I feel like if there's any reason for Michael to exist, it's to further a potential commentary on parents having problems with their kids' sexuality.
Because he says his dad.
Yeah. Yeah. There's just a lot of like stereotypical things there. And the fact that, you know, he's framed in the way he is. He's bullied for wearing eyeliner and liking witchcraft. Like there's things about that clearly frame him in that light. And so that's certainly part of the commentary that they were playing with in this episode. But again, there's a lot. I mean, there's the magic as drugs commentary that's in this. There's the religious aspects. There's the bigotry aspects. There's just a lot in here. Mm-hmm. Basically, this is just the creation of the worst society to live in a couple of days by this demon just existing. This is not a demon you want to go up against.
Oh, yeah.
And, like, there's also something to be said, like, if it's... Because they're comparing it to things like this, you know, the Salem trials. They're comparing it to entire, like, societies, like entire communities falling apart. And we see an aspect here of Amy, Willow, and Buffy being put on post, but there's no telling what else
is happened,
yeah. Unfolded. What else? Like, there's a lot of kids in this town that their parents could frame them as being part of the occult pretty easily, and there's no telling when you have a situation where you see Michael, this throwaway kid that was brought in for this one episode, being beaten by his dad, you know, and running up after this event happened. What else is going on?
Well, I mean, when they're like supposed to be mad at just anything, and they can turn anything into being a cult, like, because like Cordelia says later that her mother confiscated all of her black clothes, and candles.
Yeah.
So like they're going to extremes. It's like they are programmed by this demon to find anything that they can use to say their kid is part of the occult.
Mm-hmm. And this is another situation where we know at the end of the episode, it's just up to the people to forget. It's not a memory wipe scenario, because they discuss the fact that Willow's mom doesn't remember things, but she's like, well, she remembers some of it. She's just kind of doing that selective memory thing your mom used to be so good at. And I'm just like, whoop, yep, there's another terrible thing that has caused a lot of kids pain and suffering, and a lot of adults to do terrible, terrible things. And
forget about it.
And they're just going to choose to forget, is the way that this is framed. Yep. All right, so they run out. Giles instructs Michael to hide in his office, and we cut to Willow's room, and there's a knock on the door. Or, no, there's not a knock on the door. She just opens the door because she locked her in. And Willow's like, we have to talk. And her mom's just like, yeah, it's time to go. Get your coat. It's chilly out. And she's just like, go where? And her mom's just like, I said get your coat, witch. And the door slams. Willow's trying to like hold it against the mother and several other adults who are there with her trying to get in. And yeah, that was cranked up to 11. We see Michael coming back after being beaten by his dad. And then in this scenario, later we see like the room, like Willow's room, just completely wrecked. But it doesn't, like, I don't think we ever see any like physical marks on Willow, which is kind of a weird inconsistency in my book.
So the next scene, Buffy and Giles go to Buffy's house, and Joyce is having a meeting with other Moo members in her living room. She's like, Buffy, Giles, what happened? And they asked to talk to her privately, and Buffy's like, we have to talk alone. There's something going on. And then Giles is grabbed and Buffy are grabbed at the same time, and they're both like put chloroform over their face, so they pass out.
Mm-hmm.
And then it shows the little demon kids again. And one of them's holding a bottle of chloroform. So apparently they're corporeal.
Apparently.
And they passed it to Joyce, so taking stuff from hallucinations.
Well, and my instinct, because, you know, we have the idea of, you know, we don't know their names, we don't know the parents' names, we don't have any of this information, but yet the paper got a picture, and, like, this picture has been circulating around. So, like, I assume that the kids also gave everybody the picture in their, like, the bad people hurt us. Here's our picture so you can, you know, use it to cause others to understand all of the terrible things that are happening and understand how sweet and innocent we are because of our cute picture. It is interesting that at some point this demon had that picture made, though. Because, you know, I can confirm that a camera capable of taking that picture did not exist when this demon started doing its stuff. So somewhere along the way, it was just like, all right, I gotta advance with technology. Let me go get somebody to take my picture so I could start passing that around. It's a forward-thinking demon. I like it. So as Buffy is passing out, you also see that she can see the kids. So they have completely revealed themselves at this point. And then she passes out completely, and we go back to Willow's room, and this is where Oz and Xander rush in, and you can just see that there was, like, a struggle there. Like, she has, like, a shelf. She has a shelf knocked over and stuff like that. Yet, like I said, though, she is unmarked later on in the episode. Yeah. So that's just a quick cut. There's going to be a lot of quick cuts like that. And we're back at City Hall, and Willow is being, let's see here.
Tied to a stake.
Yeah.
Amy's on another one, and Buffy on one, and all of Giles's books are on there.
Oh, yeah.
So like, oh gosh. And I assume books from other places that they confiscated them from.
Yeah.
There had to be other books somewhere in Sunnydale, considering what kind of town it is.
Yeah.
But this is where they get totally insane. And Mrs. Rosenberg is like, there's no cure but the fire. And I think that they've gone totally insane for a couple of reasons. For one, they're inside a building and about to set a giant pile of books and teenage girls on fire.
Yeah.
Inside a building.
Yeah.
Like, why are they inside? Like, even putting aside what they're doing, they're going to burn books. Well, which is just wrong. And then they're going to, you know, set people on fire while they're alive, which is also really wrong. They are inside a building.
And again, I'm going off of the transcript, but I think the transcript would be accurate because they confirmed that the books were at City Hall. Mm-hmm. So, like, this is City Hall. So, again, what is the mayor doing in this episode? Because you don't think
I guess it's at home?
The mayor would be on board with this idea.
Yeah.
Let's just burn down City Hall. That seems like a good idea.
Amy and Willow are trying to wake up Buffy because she's still unconscious. And then we cut to Buffy's living room where Giles is there. And, like, why did they leave Giles out? Why aren't they trying to burn him, too? You know,
good point.
Is it only teenage girls?
It's only teenage girls. That's what it is.
Just like in Salem?
Yeah. Yeah.
Kind of like in Salem.
That's why they didn't put up much fight for Michael. Yeah. He was able to get
Giles
away.
Is unconscious, and then Cordelia's there slapping him to wake him up. And she's, you know, tells Giles they're out of control. My mom took my black clothes and candles. We have to fix it. She says, how many times have you knocked out? Anyway, I swear one of these times you're going to wake up in a coma.
Mm-hmm.
And Giles just gives her this crazy look that you rarely see on Giles.
Yeah.
And he goes, wake up in... Never mind. And it's like, we have to go say Buffy from Hansel and Gretel. And I love it. It always makes me laugh.
So that line is hilarious, but it's also one of those holy crap lines that the fandom has discovered as like one of those accidental, really weird foreshadowing moments, because Cordelia's final episode on Angel, she arguably wakes up in a coma because she interacts with everybody, but technically never wakes up from her coma, according to the hospital at the end of the episode. So she is up and about and interacting with everybody as a conscious being while her body is still back in the hospital asleep.
Yeah, but I don't know that was planned.
That was not planned. There is no way that was planned. But it's just one of those, like, freaky coincidental things that you're just like, how did they just magic that into existence. But it's just one of those, like, I delight in that line so much because of that aspect of her character that I'm just like, that is one of the happiest Bob Ross accidents that you could possibly have.
Okay, then we see Xander and Oz run into City Hall, and there's a bunch of guys like guarding the door, and they do very briefly pretend like they're there to join them, and then they see it's not working, and Oz is just like, y'all are crazy, right? And then they start running, and the guys chase them away. But luckily now nobody is guarding the door. So we go back to where the three girls are tied to stakes, and Willow's still trying to wake Buffy up, and then she finally wakes up to being tied to a stake, and she decides to cut Buffy again. And Buffy's like, "You don't want to do this," and Joyce says, "Since when does it matter what I want? I wanted a normal, happy daughter. Instead, I got a Slayer." And, oh, ouch.
Yeah, this is the moment where I think they should have had like a bigger reaction from Buffy. If you're going to save it up, have it here.
In the script, it says Buffy takes this in and she's stricken.
Yeah. I don't feel like the reaction was big enough in the episode. I don't remember the reaction, so that proves to me that it wasn't big enough.
Yeah. Well, and so I guess they're doing Buffy because she's a Slayer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Amy and Willow because they're witches, but Buffy's because she's a Slayer. You know, Joyce knows that there's another Slayer in town.
Yeah.
So is Faith being affected by this? Or is she just like chilling in her little motel room?
Yeah.
Because Joyce doesn't go after her if she's getting Buffy because she's a Slayer.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a brief conversation when Willow's mom and Joyce talk about how hard this has been, and they're going to have lunch one day.
Yeah.
And then Amy's like, "You can't be serious," when they were lighting the books on fire. And she's like, "You want to fry a witch? I'll give you a witch." And does some magic and turns herself into a rat. At which point Buffy says she can do that for us first.
Yeah,
and
there is a note I saw. I think this may have also been Passion of the Nerd, where I never really considered it because I thought she always intended to turn herself into a rat. But the fact that her arms are bound and she couldn't thrust her arms out like she did when she originally cast that spell meant that it backfired and turned herself into a rat when initially she was going to turn people in the crowd into rats.
Oh.
And I like that idea.
Think about that. That makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense.
Because that's much more of an Amy thing to do than to just turn herself into a rat.
Yeah. And I've never understood why a rat.
Because it's unclean.
But, like, why not just magic yourself to somewhere else? Like, hey, I want to be in the parking lot now and not tied to the stake about to be set on fire.
Yeah.
You know?
She's a one-trick pony. She has that one spell down really well, and then all the others she's still working on.
But is she? Because in season 6, when Willow was like, "Hey, I forgot about her for 4 years or 3 years, but now I can do this," and immediately turns her back into a human. Amy's got some serious.
Believe me, I will talk about that. Like, I'm just like, that does not make any sense whenever I watch that. But anyway,
so she has those powers at this point.
Theoretically,
she just didn't use them.
Yeah. Sure.
And I'm still trying to figure out how they plan to control this fire inside. When all these books are
I'm still stuck on the idea of setting something on fire inside. Why? Oh, man. I had something I was going to say a second ago, and I've completely lost it because we've gone so many weird directions in this.
Well, that's what we do.
I think I was just going to say that there was also a note that I had that, like, they mentioned before Amy and before Willow were walked away, Oz mentions that, 3 kids had been taken away already? You could presume that Michael's one of those, but, like, who's the other 2 kids that had witchcraft stuff or close enough to witchcraft stuff in their locker that they would be taken away? I want to know who those 2 kids are. Can we get that? Is one of them...
That'd be interesting to know.
Is one of them Tucker? Is one of them Jonathan? Who are they? Like, I need to know.
At this point, Buffy and Willow try to make everybody believe that they are more powerful witches than Amy and can do more than what she did. It's kind of like, hey, untie us or we're going to do something. Because they can't even think of something specific.
Mm-hmm.
The little boy and the little girl kind of appear and are like, you promised you have to kill the bad girls. And then we cut to Giles's car where he is having Cordelia put together all the ingredients for a spell that he just happens to have all the stuff for and know while they're driving. And he gives her a toadstone, which she smells for some reason, and says it doesn't look like a toad.
Yeah.
Says, no reason it should. It's from inside the toad. Which I enjoy that part.
Yeah. I do enjoy the odd pairings that they get to have in this episode. You get Oz and Xander, you get Cordelia and Giles. I always appreciate those things. But something that just occurred to me, and I don't know why this just occurred to me, but they have a set that's a magic shop, and that is not featured in this episode.
Good point.
And I was just like, when you said that, he was just like, he just happened to have that. I was just like, well, maybe they stopped at the magic shop. And I was like, oh, wait.
Which has probably been burned down.
There's
this episode.
What? Yeah. What happened to the magic shop? Because clearly that would have been a target.
And then we go back to City Hall in the rotunda, and which I guess is the center, and the little demon children they hurt us. You have to hurt them. And then Buffy's like, dead people are talking to you. Do the math. Which is good. Willow and Buffy are still trying to get free, and Giles and Cordelia arrive at the City Hall, and they go in and no one's guarding the door because they're chasing Oz and Xander. So Giles picks the lock with a hairpin from Cordy's hair. Mm-hmm. And that's how they get in. And then Oz and Willow, they're in a hallway and they can hear Willow yelling for help. And they decide she's above them. And so they crawl into the air conditioning ducts. Then Willow and Buffy, we're back to Willow and Buffy, and Willow's saying it's too hot, I can't take it. And Buffy says, I'm so sorry, Willow, if it wasn't for me, you never would. And I'm like, well, yeah, she wouldn't be here being almost burned alive, but she would also be dead. So
yeah,
I'm just saying.
There is an interesting commentary that comes with this episode, which there's audience knowledge versus character knowledge, and there's a lot of aspects of, did Buffy make any difference? What's even the point if Sunnydale doesn't seem to be getting any better? But of course, we as the audience saw the wish and saw that Willow and Xander would indeed be dead, and that Sunnydale would be in much worse shape, and all of this stuff that the characters don't have any information about. So it is kind of a fun little play off of the Wish-verse episode. But yeah, it is kind of one of those weird things of just a weird confession to have. I mean, I guess, if you think you're about to die, it's time to be like, I'm so sorry, I got you into this mess, this is all my fault. And that's very much a Buffy thing to do anyway, is to put all the blame on herself. But it is kind of just, the amount of times that Willow's life has been saved by Buffy means that her life has been extended far beyond what it would have been. Plus, Willow made the choice to pursue witchcraft. That was her deal. I don't think there was ever an episode that I saw where Buffy was just like, you have to do magic so I can use you to fight evil. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so Giles and Cordelia run in. They're there to take charge. I just love this. Giles is casting the spell, Cordelia gets the hose and starts spraying the crowd, and then eventually Buffy's just the fire, and Cordelia's like, oh right. And you have a very brief cut of Oz and Xander just still in the ventilation shaft, and then as the flames are extinguished, Giles finishes the spell, and the two sweet little children hug each other and then morph into large, ugly demon.
Okay, I think I like the two little ones more than the one big one.
And yeah, everybody pretty much runs out. Choice is Choice is like, oh my god, and the demon's like, protect us, kill the bad girls.
Because apparently the demon doesn't know how to say anything else.
Those are the only words the demon knows. And yeah, Buffy's like, that's not as convincing in this outfit, and the demon starts to go after her, but she like manages to get enough leverage at this point to break the stake, which is weird that suddenly now she has the strength to do this. And she wasn't, doing this before, but convenience. And she breaks the stake and is leaned over to where she can't quite see. And so she shouts, "Did I get it? Did I get it?" And then we get this wide shot of the stake just like shoved through this demon's neck. And then Xander and Oz crash through the ceiling.
I love this. I love it when they crash through the ceiling. Oh, it's the best.
There's some really fun bits in this episode, and that's one of them. Oh, man. And then we have like a really short ending scene to wrap up all of this terribleness. No closure between Buffy and Joyce. Nothing going on to like explain the aftermath of what's just happened. Just this quick scene between Willow and Buffy trying to get Amy turned back into human form and felling, and a brief mention of the fact that Willow's mom is suppressing all of this. Except for the fact that she's dating a musician. That's still.
Yeah. She says, Mom forgot everything except that I'm dating a musician. Oz has to come to dinner next week. Yeah. But we got all these comments about how her mom doesn't have anything to do with her life, and her mom hadn't seen her haircut since August. But I'm to believe that they have dinner together all the time? Like as a family? It doesn't make sense.
Nope. Willow's mom really doesn't make sense. Willow's mom was invented by the kids, and she's just like a remnant, like after effect that still hasn't gone away completely after the demon was killed. And once that goes away, then we never hear about Willow's mom again. That's my canon. Yeah.
And that is Gingerbread. And next week is Helpless, which is one that I really enjoy.
Yes. I feel like we're kind of through the slog of season 3 for me. There's kind of a slog that exists, even though there's some fun episodes in it, but it's kind of directionless from the like Lover's Walk through this episode all feel kind of fillery. There's a few things.
Which one is Lover's Walk?
Lover's Walk is when Spike comes back. Yeah. Yeah. You have the Spike episode, and then you have the alternate universe episode, and then you have the Christmas episode, and then you have the crazy, adults in Sunnydale, doing shenanigans that they're all going to forget about at the end of the episode. So there's not a lot to progress the story, and a lot of the stuff that does happen kind of gets reset. Like at the end of Revelations, there's a fallout between Buffy and Faith. Well, that was reset in Amends. There's the fallout at the end of Lover's Walk between Buffy and Angel. Well, that was reset, and now they're hugging each other. There's the situation with the big reveal and Oz and Cordelia leaving Willow and Xander. Well, Cordelia's still gone, sure, but, that could have been done in a number of ways. And Oz and Willow are already back together and everything's relatively fine. It was just like kind of a meandering group of episodes that are fun enough, but like you have one of the most charismatic villains and one of the most interesting characters to be introduced in The Mayor and Faith. And they're just taking their sweet time to get to them. And there's just these meandering episodes that you kind of have to wade through. Where you're just like, where's the season arc stuff? Because I'm ready for that. Mm-hmm. And we're still not like, it really takes until we get to Bad Girls before we really get to that full blast. But man, it's so weird to me. I really wish there was a universe in which Faith was just a season 3 regular. Like for this one season, as soon as they introduced her, she was in every episode for the rest of the season, and they really developed her character right in the season and did right by her. Because I feel like she had, as much as she did, as much as Eliza Dushku did with what she was given, she could have done so much more had they actually given her the screen time to develop Faith even more. Because holy crap, she is a lot of people's favorite, and you watch this at least beginning half of the season and you're just like, she's barely in this. I'm kind of shocked at how little Faith we've gotten at this point.
But we're about to get a lot more of her.
Yeah, it's gonna get there. This is the problem with the 22 episode season arc, is you get some meandering filler stuff, and you get a little bit less of that as that progresses. Some people love the standalone episodes. I remember I remember seeing somebody on like Buffy Facebook group saying that season 5 is actually one of their least favorite seasons because it's too focused on the season arc and doesn't have very many standalone episodes. And I'm just like the opposite of that. Like, I want a really tight season arc where every episode does something to advance that season arc, and that's like my favorite thing. All right. I think we're done with this episode. It's a little all over the place. It has a lot of commentary bits that don't fully land and some bits that make us angry. But I think if I'm willing to just sit down and turn my brain off, I quite enjoy it for what it is. It's got some fun bits of dialogue and some good character moments for sure.
It's one of those that you just can't think too much about.
Don't think too much about this episode, and it's great. Yeah. So anyway, thank you all so much for listening, and this is where we say bye.